Hey guys, welcome back to One All's Pub. All right, saddled up next to the Trans Am and Bert there is the Kingdom Armory Mini Samaritan. This is actually the version 2 of the Mini Sam. The Mini Samaritan being the first production knife offering from Kingdom Armory. This is a sub 3-inch bladed, sub 4-inch handled small EDC titanium frame lock folder with S30V that frankly is amazing in hand. That's the main thing to take away from this. I mean, it's a great knife all around, and I'll get into some details on it. But the first and foremost, you got to recognize just how amazingly well this knife was designed to fit into the hand. You take, I think it's 3 in, Bert, go ahead and provide us some specs either here or down below in the description. You take what's basically a 3 3/4 inch handle, and you think you're going to have all kinds of 3-finger knife issues, but you just don't. You actually have handle hanging off the edge, and I wear a medium to large size glove. A medium's a little tight and a large is a little big, so I'm kind of right in the middle. And you got some nice functional jimping. You got this awesome swell that just gives you a thumb rest par excellence. The ergos on this knife are just fantastic and incredibly well designed by Dave at Kingdom Armory. The blade shape is this cool Skinner blade. It's not the ultimate thinnest behind the edge, but it's not terrible either. I have sharpened it on my wicked edge and put a nice polished edge on it, as you see, to 18 degrees per side, if I can get the camera to play here. And it's by no means a broad bevel, and it cuts very nice. So it's not bad at all. I mean, I'm not quite the thin behind the edge OCD person that some people are. Rob. Possible Pete. But this one is way within my scope of acceptable blade thickness. Then again, I do like XM18, so I've got some. I definitely have a different take on that, or different tolerance for a little thicker blade behind the edge. That said, I'm moving more towards Rob's way. I'm starting to appreciate thin behind the edge, really keen slicers. And this one is not bad at all. It's fairly thick stock, and being flat ground, but only about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up, it does make a pretty abrupt change. Grind-wise, making a pretty abrupt transition to the edge. So it's not bad right there, right behind the edge, but it thickens pretty appreciably as it gets towards the middle of this blade and it starts to feel the thickness of that blade stock. That said, like I said, it actually cuts really well, and I have no complaints on it. Cool swedge tip here. Look at one of the elements. Sorry, Bert. One of the things I really like about one of the little details on this knife that's so neat, and I don't know if I can even get it to focus to catch that, is there is a small little, I don't know if you can see it, little, I don't know, triangle, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. The swedge, basically what it is the swedge does not come all the way to the tip. It comes to about right there and then stops and then flares out and then comes to the tip. So you have actually a nice stout little tip there. There you go. You can kind of see it better. So the tip itself does not get real thin, yet it's still plenty small for good detail work. But anyway, just a neat little touch right there. The grinds are just very nice, just very symmetrical. I really just have no complaints on any of that detail work on this knife. The handle itself has these cool faux bolsters with this kind of cratered look to it. What's interesting is if you look on both sides, you can tell it was done on a CNC, because the pattern on both sides is exactly the same. It's just a mirror image. So these are not individually done. So I mean, again, it's a production knife, so that's to be expected. But gives it. If you've seen any of Dave's other work at Kingdom Armory, this is kind of his look, and it certainly comes across extremely well here. This knife is just begging for anodizing and whatnot. So it just needs some Although I don't know, I do also like it here, but man, wouldn't it be? I like it just in the plain TI, but maybe just anodizing that full bolster, wouldn't that be cool? I don't know. We'll see. Rick over at the Toad Sticker channel has got some new anodizing equipment, so one never knows. Anywho, back to the knife itself. Very cool shaped titanium handle, fold over pocket clip, which again is not always my favorite. We suffer kind of from some of the same issues. If you watched my review of the Zero Tolerance 0900, you heard me bemoaning fold over pocket clips and the screws that stick up, and the Kingdom Armory Mini Samaritan kind of suffers from that same thing. That said, it's taller this way, so you have more room, at least at this end. Here you don't have a ton. Here you have about the same. On this first screw, you have about the same that you have on these guys. But it does allow for more room up here. So I actually have an easier time with this one in the pocket than this one. But it's not bad. I've heard some people really complaining about this pocket clip. And while I wouldn't rate it a 10, I certainly wouldn't say it sucks, as I've heard some people say. It's acceptable. For a fold-over clip, it's about as good as you see. At least they've made it nice and tall towards the back here. I do kind of wish it was tall here and then went planed out straight and then took a more kind of a sweep then after it cleared the space of the screws, or flush mount the screws. But that said, I don't find it particularly difficult. It's not bad. It's got nice open construction standoffs here. I'm going to assume they're titanium. I don't know. I have not put a magnet to them. I have had the knife apart, and that's kind of a story I'll get into here in a minute too. Nice dual thumb studs. They're pretty tall, frankly, and maybe even a little too tall. I've caught them sometimes coming out of a pocket, but they do give you a nice access to get the blade open. So I can't complain too much on it. If you, some people talk about having issues opening this. I don't have problems with it, but I have seen some people have issues getting this open, getting their thumb dug in, and are they pinching the lock bar and they doing whatever? I can pinch the lock bar in mine pretty tight and still get it open, but it's a small knife, so it takes a little bit of dexterity to kind of do it. If you watch Dave's channel, his Kingdom Armory channel here on YouTube, back when he first was coming out with the version 1, he talks about this and about how he made that second thumb stud so that you can do that kind of a deal. You can hook that, gives you a place to rest your finger while you're opening, and you can kind of keep it off the lock bar. Okay, well, that's fine. I like it for spidey flicking. And I guess I generally don't have too much of a problem. I do sometimes, though, just because of the size and compactness of the knife, I'll find myself kind of opening it with that one and finishing with that one sometimes if I, for whatever reason. I don't know why. I've just kind of developed that habit with this knife. I don't need to because, like I said, I don't have a problem opening it that way. But because that thumb stud is so big back there, sometimes I just do that. I don't know. Just a quirk. Aesthetically, just a freaking handsome knife. Look at that. Oh, my gosh. It's just such a cool knife. He's talking about coming out with, and I know it is actually in the works, coming out with a 3.5-inch production version of the Samaritan. And wow, while I'm trending towards smaller knives, that one comes out, I'm going to have to give that one a serious look. So all around, just such a cool aesthetic on this knife. Such a cool blade shape. Fat blade, skinny handle, but the handle just fits. The way he transitions his edge and protects your hand, because you don't really have any kind of a finger guard here. You have kind of the beard of the blade hanging down here, which kind of gives you your finger guard, which also then puts your parasite close to the cutting edge. But the way he's kind of walked this, he gives you this little, how he grinds it, I guess, is he doesn't really start the edge for about, a quarter inch or so in. And so this is all unsharpened flat, so your finger's pretty well protected. I haven't had any problems with it, so I got no complaints. The only real complaint or issue I would give with it in that regard was when it came to sharpening the knife. Boy, you had to be careful that you didn't get back up into this area and end up with a big ugly spot where you'd kind of sharpen flat that wasn't meant to be edge. So you really I taped it up really good right in this area when I had it on the wicked edge, just to be sure I knew where my edge started, and just kind of really went careful and blended it in. And it seemed to work pretty well, but it was not easy. Now, for future touch-ups, it'll probably be a lot easier because I'll keep it touched up either by stropping or light ceramics or whatever. I shouldn't have to reprofile because I did reprofile a little bit to get down to this 18 degrees. So future should be a little bit easier. But yeah, that was kind of challenging. If I was sharpening multiples of these, I would screw one up sooner or later. You just know it would. So it's just one of those things you just got to be really attentive to when you're sharpening this particular blade because of the way he did that. His S30V seems to be pretty solid. Sharpened. It actually, I think he runs it pretty hard. It took me a while to kind of get this where I wanted it and get it sharpened, but it was all very, because the grinds are very symmetrical and everything is very nice. It wasn't a challenge trying to get even bevels. Then it just kind of fell into line and did what it was supposed to do. Just a great, handsome knife. Now, let's talk about kind of the challenge that I had with this knife when I first got it. I bought this used off of Blade Forums, and when I bought it, the guy that I bought it from told me that it was brand new in box. Now, he was selling it for $90 under new cost, so that should have been a flag to me. Now, I know that there have been some issues with these, especially the Gen 1s or the version 1s of the Mini Samaritan. So I was aware that there kind of could be some challenges with these knives, and was still willing to go ahead and get one because I just loved the look of it and really wanted to give it a try. And as I've been trending towards these smaller EDCs, I really wanted to give this one a go. I mean, it seemed like one of the ones that I needed to have in my stable. That said, when I got it, I'm not sure brand new in box is the proper description for it. Now, it may not have ever been used from the standpoint that it was, it certainly wasn't scratched up or beat up or anything like that. And the seller that sold it to me didn't have it very long. I found his thread where he bought it a couple weeks earlier, from somebody who was probably advertising it as brand new in box. And so he was just repeating what he was told. I'm not throwing any stones here at the guy. But the knife itself had a pretty gnarly chip in it right about there in the edge. So if it was brand new in box, it had been used at least once and nicked pretty gnarly, or it came from Kingdom Armory like that, which I kind of doubt. The other thing that it had was incredibly bad lock stick. It was brutal, and it was pretty stiff. I mean, it was so bad, the lock stick was so bad that I really wasn't sure the knife was going to survive. I thought I was going to have to turn around and sell it myself and take the hit. Because of that, though, I thought, well, I got nothing to lose, so I'll go ahead and take it apart and see what I can do with it. So I took this knife apart. I bet I took this knife apart the first day I had it, back and forth, trying to get it to do what I wanted it to do 4 or 5 times. Finally ended up actually having to bend the lock bar out just a little bit to relieve some tension, so that this thing would not have. And then once I did that, the lock stick disappeared, and of course I got it cleaned up and lubed up with some CRK grease and kind of got the action worked in really nice. And once I did all that, then the action and everything came together. It does have early lockup, and my slight bending out of the lock bar did not affect that. That's the way it was before. I mean, it's like about 15-20%. I do wish it was a little better than that, a little more this way. But that said, it's very solid. So I mean, there's not really any play. So I'm not from a functional standpoint, it's fine. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. But it did take. I bet you for the first 4 or 5 hours I had this knife, I was not convinced it was going to stay. I was pretty sure, as a matter of fact, I probably wasn't going to keep it. That said, after going through all my tweaks and tunings and everything else, started to kind of grow on me. And I mean, I loved the look of it, but I was just frustrated by how it how it was not performing as it should. But as I kind of got those things squared away, and the only other real issue I had was I did have some issues with the pivot staying tight. It wanted to loosen up on itself. After a day, I kept tightening it, and then it would loosen up and I tighten it. This is another one of those round pivots only. It doesn't have a D-shaped female side. Now this does have a pivot bushing in it like you find on a Sebenza, but I will say that it's not as well executed as you find on a Chris Reeve. So it did want to spin and come loose. If I absolutely crank on this knife, I can crank it down and really screw up the action. So much like you find on a pivot bushing system on a Spyderco paramilitary too, you know, it's kind of luck of the draw. You're not going to get probably the same tolerances and precision that you get out of a Chris Reeve pivot bushing. That's just apparently, I mean, the deal is with the pivot bushing is, this is just to all knife makers out there, either do it or don't do it. It's neat when it works, but if it doesn't, then it's just a pain. So if you're not sure you're going to nail it, just put a regular pivot in there. That's fine too. Those work just fine too, guys. So at any rate, but I put some Loctite in the pivot, long story short there, and got that squared away. So no problem at all. Now it's rock solid. It free drops sometimes, half the time. Like right now, it kind of seems to go through phases. Other times, like right now, it's in a good phase. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes there it didn't free drop. So, you know, I don't know. It's a little bit quirky in that regard. So there's an example. You saw a few free drops and a few times where it just didn't. Centering is dead on perfect. Action is buttery smooth otherwise. You know, CRK grease and a phosphor bronze washers in there. And, you know, you can't go wrong. I did go with the grease instead. Because it was a pivot bushing, I figured I'd go with the grease instead of the Daiwa. Because I do use CRK grease on my Sebenzas too, instead of my Daiwa real oil. But if a knife's got Teflon, I really definitely love the Daiwa. If it's got Teflon washers. If it's got phosphor bronze, I usually do Daiwa. But sometimes I'll go CRK grease. Sometimes I just try. Just depends on the knife and what it tends to like. But at any rate, the Kingdom Armory Mini Samaritan. Great EDC knife. Is it a Small Sebenza? I just happen to have one here on me. Big surprise. There it is size-wise, by the way. It's a little bit shorter, as you can see. The handle's a little bit shorter too. But man, it's awesome in hand. It's every bit as good, maybe a little better even in hand than the Sebenza. It's tough to say. Small Sebenza is pretty dang nice in hand too. I don't know. Maybe not better. Boy, the way you can do this on it, and the way you really get up there. Let me see. Man, I really like the way Small Sebenza feels too. I'm not going to say it's any better, maybe, but it's certainly no worse. And it's got a different feel to it. I mean, it's got kind of maybe that's just it. Maybe it's because you kind of feel like you have a little bit more variety hand positions. It's more versatile. The handle is more versatile. It doesn't feel any better necessarily in hand, but it's more versatile maybe than a Sebenza from an overall ergonomics perspective. But my point I was trying to make is that it does all that with that much less handle. And that's just amazing. And you've got like a 2 3/4 inch blade here, which is also what you have here. Let's see if that, yeah. So there you go. Putting some truth to that. There we go. It's actually a little bit longer, so maybe it's 2 7/8 inch. I guess I'm not sure. Bert, why don't you give us the specs if you haven't already? I think I already asked you to do that, but at any rate. But with this sweeping belly, you get a little over 3 inches worth of cutting surface, so which is pretty dang nice. Another way, let's go ahead and do that. Bert, I'm going to have to move you and the Trans Am out of the way here. Sorry, buddy. So I can do some size comparisons. So there it is next to the Small Sebenza. Line the butts of the knives up. There it is next to another great little small knife, the Zero Tolerance 0900. And I don't know, here's my Mini Tack Butcher. give you an idea size-wise. And go ahead and show you one other as a preview. Oh, you know what, before I do that, here's the, I haven't reviewed this yet, but I will be getting to it. The Zero Tolerance 0450, new to the pub. Quite a bit longer, as you can see. 3¼ inch blade there. Great knife. We'll be getting to that soon. And here's kind of another little spoiler alert here, a little sneak preview. A 3-inch hinderer. Gives you an idea what it compares up against the 3-inch hinderer. XM18. So you can see I've got some more knives to review for you guys. All right, so the Mini Samaritan, the Kingdom Armory, version 2. You can tell the difference in versions. The first version says Kingdom Armory, really big letters, and the second version just has the little small Kingdom Armory logo there with the cross and crown. Dave's a Christian, so that's a cool deal. So I really want to support him. And I tell you what, aside from the first couple of little quirky things I had go on with this that first day, until I got it squared away. But once I got it squared away, I really have fallen in love with this little knife, and it's just one of my regular, if you follow me on Instagram, you certainly have seen me carry this a lot, and I will continue to do so. It's just a great EDC blade. It does so much with so little. It's just awesome. Anyway, that's one of those 2 cents, guys. Keep the change. Sláinte.